Welcome to Fertility Village. This is your weekly live talk show where community and support come together. With rotating hosts, expert guests, and meaningful conversations, we're here to guide you through the highs and the lows of infertility. Whether you're searching for answers, seeking advice, or just looking for a special place to belong, Fertility Village is your space to connect, learn, and grow. Because it really does take a village, and we are here for you every step of the way. Thanks for joining. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Welcome to Fertility Village Live. It's Erin here, one of your hosts, and I have my co-host tonight, Tanya, making her debut on our Village Live. Tanya, who you haven't seen before on Fertility Village, is actually our wonderful, spectacular producer who's usually behind the scenes doing the thing, making sure everybody's in the right view, making sure the videos come on. So, Tanya, thank you for filling in tonight for Marissa and joining us live. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, amazing. But moving on, tonight we are so excited to welcome a very special guest, Dr. Lorne Brown. Welcome, Dr. Lorne. It's great to see you too.
Yeah, nice to see you again as well. And thank you for having me on your podcast.
Yeah. Dr. Lorne, he's not only a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, he's a clinical hypnotherapist, and he's also a pioneer in the integrative fertility care. He's the founder of the world-renowned Acubalance Wellness Centre, who's watching us live on Instagram. Hi, Acubalance. And that's located in Vancouver. And he's also the host of the Conscious Fertility Podcast. So easy to say, Dr. Lorne is a well-renowned speaker. He's well-versed in all of the live things and all of the podcasting. So yeah, I'm so excited to welcome you to this space. And Dr. Lorne and I actually met last year at the CFAS conference. Tiffany and I were there at the Oasis booth, holding down the fort, sharing about Oasis to all of the wonderful doctors and practitioners who were attending the Canadian Fertility and Andrology Society conference. And we had the pleasure of meeting you. You walked down the aisle to our booth and just had the most, I would say, of everybody I met that whole weekend, the most amazing energy of everybody. You left the conversation with Tiffany and I, and it was a chaotic weekend because there's you're meeting so many people, you're talking, and you're just overwhelmed with all of the interactions. And I remember you coming and leaving and me saying, I need that man in my life. So I need, you're just have such amazing energy. And I had no voice that whole weekend because I was sick. And I just remember thinking you're just so interesting to talk to. So you just created such a sense of I don't know, hope. I don't know. I just said he is a wonderful soul, and I can't wait to involve you more in our organization. And you were excited about the work that we're doing. So anybody who's a fan of Oasis, I'm a fan of, so thank you so much for joining us. That's my professional and personal intro for you.
Well, thank you. And it was obviously good to meet you guys, and I love the work you're doing and so important for our communities. And so it was easy to get behind you guys and start telling people about what you're doing so we can create more community and support for those people looking to grow their families. So glad we got to find each other. Even though you didn't have much of a voice that day, I was able to hear you and understand you clearly. And I'm glad we're back together again to talk some more.
Well, what happened actually is it gave you the opportunity to talk, because I usually don't stop talking. For people that know me, it's just I'm a bit of a chatterbox. And so gave you the opportunity to say more and me listen, which was actually really good for me, especially, because you have amazing things to say. So I'll throw it over to Tanya. Tanya's going to tell our audience tonight about what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, so tonight we're going to be diving into everything conscious fertility. So a mind-body healing to belief transformation and the power of subconscious. So buckle up for a pretty transformational, words are hard tonight, transformational conversation. And don't forget that this episode and all of our live episodes are going to be available to rewatch on YouTube at Oasis FSN and in the audio form on the Oasis Fertility Podcast. So subscribe, and share.
Yes, please do that. Like, subscribe, share. If you're watching right now, if you're watching in 6 months from now, please go join our Instagram community, join our Facebook community. We'd love to invite you in. So let's hear from Lorne. I want to hear about your journey. How did you go from a chartered accountant, CPA, right?
Yeah.
To a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine? This just sounds like we could be here all night just for this story. So
Yeah.
we'll throw it over to you. Let's hear about that.
Well, I'm going to do a short version because I really want to talk about what we can do to support those trying to grow their family. But it is a little bit of an interesting story. So, like you said, I trained as a chartered accountant, and it was my health issues. So I had my own personal health issues that I just was not able to resolve. And at the time, I was, I guess, open to it because look what I do now. But I didn't know practitioners that are doing Chinese medicine, naturopathy, or other forms of healing outside of conventional medicine. But I just wasn't surviving well. Like I was really struggling. And I had an aunt that was into this. And I had to fly from Montreal to Calgary to find her herbalist. And it was through that I had really bad fatigue. I had brain fog. Back in the day, this is back in the 80s and 90s. So that's how far ago it was. I just struggled with concentration. They called it candida and chronic fatigue syndrome. And through the diet change, all these Chinese herbal medicine and acupuncture, I had never had such clarity in my mind after that and felt so good, like the stamina. Like I'd never felt so great. And so I still studied. I was at the time studying accounting at McGill after I did my Bachelor of Science in Math from Western in Canada. And it was a few years later, I was actually the controller and tax guy for some of the ocean spray growers in British Columbia at the time. And I had to move my residence. And when I was moving, I was packing up all my books. And I had the generally accepted accounting principles and the Income Tax Act. And everything else was on diet and healing and spiritual, like everything. And it kind of was an aha moment, like maybe where does my passion really lie now? And so I took the chance and I resigned from my position as the controller. And I went into Chinese medicine school because I had been using it at that point. Ever since I got introduced to it, I just used it throughout my life when I needed a tune-up or something was going on. And I was passionate about it. So that's how I got into Chinese medicine. And the fertility part, I thought I would work with digestive issues, IBS, Crohn's, colitis. That was kind of what brought me into the medicine. And the people that I was seeing still today, mostly women seek out healthcare providers, more women than men do. And we do a very holistic overview. So we look from head to toe. And so we always do a menstrual history. And I was advertising back in that day. And my word of mouth was, if you have digestive issues, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, Crohn's, colitis, I'd like to see you. And when the women came in, I would do a history, and lo and behold, although we were helping with their bowel issues, their PMS symptoms went away, their menstrual pain or their regular bleeding, and I became known kind of the PMS guy. And then I started focusing on women's health, and a woman came to me saying, "Can you help me? I'm going through IVF. I'm seeing who ended up becoming my mentor, Randine Lewis. And she lived in Vancouver and she was flying to Houston for her acupuncture and herbal. And Randine said, you need to find somebody who does fertility in Vancouver. But back in the day, it wasn't internet. And the magazine where people advertised, including myself, called Common Ground in Vancouver, I said I have a focus in women's health. And so she saw me and she asked if I could help her. And this was back in 2002. Like I started in 2000, so over 25 years ago, right? And I said, sure, I'd like to help you. I just need to know, what is IVF? so I've come a long way, right? Because back then I didn't know. And she ended up telling her friends and her friends. And eventually by 2004, I had such a wait list that I decided at that point in time only to treat reproductive health because nobody was focusing on reproductive health back then. Now, most people have it on their website. A lot of people do it. But when I was back in that time, I was the only Chinese medicine clinic only focusing on reproductive health. So that's kind of how I got into it. I never chose, it wasn't my intention, but the universe had plans for me. And here we are over 25 years later.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. And I would love, I'm going a little off script here, but like the increase of patients that are doing IVF, seeking fertility treatment 25 years ago compared to today, like how much worse is this problem? Like, you've been doing this a long time, so.
Yeah, well, there's data we can look at, and then there's kind of my opinion. We're seeing more and more people struggling with infertility, and it could be because they have the courage to go seek out help. When back in the day, it was my clinic that got IVF acupuncture on site into the clinics in Vancouver. So it wasn't even, most clinics have it now. Back then, they didn't even want us there, and they used to call it test tube, babies,
totally.
right? Yeah. And so people were apprehensive about doing IVF. Now it doesn't have that kind of stigma to it, and people are engaging in it. So more and more people are doing it. I think, it could be because people are trying older. I would personally say that the men are contributing a lot more than we are talking about. So for infertility. And also I would say our environment is probably impacting our egg quality. The toxins and the endocrine disruptors in our environment, the plastics, are probably making it harder, plus age. So we have a perfect storm of why more people are needing help.
Yeah. People ask all the time, in my position, like, well, what's causing this infertility? And I'm like, well, what's causing cancer? What's causing diabetes? Like, diabetes is a little different. There are different factors for every illness, but there's cancer is a good example because there's so many things causing it. It's not just that we're waiting till we're older to start our families and whatnot. There's so many factors. I'm a millennial. I'm in that generation where I heat up my, my lunch and my Tupperware every day for the first 15 or 20 years of my life. How much plastic, all of the things. So anyways, Tanya, I'm going to throw it over to you. You've got the next question here.
Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of stumbled onto fertility care, and that's kind of what made you see the need for this kind of clinic. But what is the vision behind Acubalance?
Yeah, so when I was a solo practitioner, and starting in 2004, because I had such a wait list, and I chose to just treat reproductive health back then and turn away other people with other diagnoses because there was such a need. Like, nobody was treating it or focusing on it back then that were in Chinese medicine or naturopathy, as far as I was aware. And so I saw a need, and there was a desperation in this community. They were struggling. It was challenging. I found it interesting from a Chinese medicine perspective and the endocrine system. I'm really passionate and really find that fascinating, interesting. So I was intellectually drawn to it. And then from the heart sense aspect, I saw a need that they needed support and help. So I started hiring associates and training them. Because somebody waiting 3 months who's trying to conceive, that's eternity for them. So I needed to get other associates to help. And so, I didn't have a big plan, Tanya. I just, wanted to, I was passionate about the medicine, wanted to serve, wanted to help people. And it just kind of happened that way, that it was fertility. I was passionate about it. And I found really good people. And then somewhere around 2005, I created a continuing education company for acupuncturists, naturopaths. And because I wasn't teaching it, I just started the platform and brought in experts from around the world, and then eventually went online in 2008. And at this point in time, we have the largest library in English for reproductive health courses for acupuncturists. So I attracted really good people because they wanted to learn from my library, right? And I was also the only one going on site at the IVF clinic. So I had that relationship, and they wanted to work with a Western doctor. So that's kind of just how it happened. And at this point, we're recording this in spring of 2025. Now I treat everything again because my big passion is around consciousness. And so I see a lot of people perimenopause, menopause, not surprisingly, because that population I grew up with, that's where they are now. I still do treat fertility, work with people that are diagnosed with fertility issues, but probably 70% of my practice is fertility related. And then the other 30%, pain, lots of hormonal stuff, emotional stuff that people want to do belief change work around. So I've gone full circle back to being that kind of practitioner, but because of my background, my training, my experience, I still have people come and seek me out. We were the early adopters in North America for low-level laser therapy for fertility. I think we're getting credit for kind of making that more known and popular in North America. I kind of had to learn from the Japanese and what they were doing in Denmark, and then I brought that to Canada and the States and started educating people. So I still work with this population a lot, but not 100%.
Yeah. So you've really bridged the gap between, ancient wisdom and this modern version of science. You mentioned consciousness, but we've seen that your podcast is Conscious Fertility.
Yeah, the podcast is called the Conscious Fertility Podcast.
So what does that mean? And how does that help people unlock that ability?
Yeah, so that came about, again, through my own personal spiritual growth. And again, with experience, 25 years in, I was focused so much on the physical. And I started noticing, for whatever people were coming in, when people had a real transformation on a spiritual level, when old programs, subconscious programs, we make the unconscious conscious and they're able to heal, they would have breakthroughs. And it became apparent to me that the most important aspect of us is that spiritual aspect of ourselves. And when we can heal on a spiritual, emotional, the physical follows really well. And so rather than working heavily on the physical, I started to address more with the emotional and spiritual. And that comes from my background as a clinical hypnotherapist, and then doing other training in things that are called energy psychology, like emotional freedom technique, EFT, PSYCH-K, Marissa Peer's rapid transformational therapy, Bankson healing, like the list goes on. It just became my passion. And again, for me, like I was healing myself, right? I had debilitating anxiety back in 2010, 2011. I was a burnt out practitioner. I have functional medicine, Chinese medicine in my clinic. So I was working on the physical, but when you have that negative thought and whether it's conscious or unconscious, it wears on the body. And what's happening is to answer that second part of your question. So when your body doesn't feel safe, it kind of down regulates the reproductive system. We know this. When the body doesn't feel safe, we're in a stress response. We go into that sympathetic fight or flight. And in general, your resources get mobilized for survival. So they're not as much available for healing, creativity, and reproduction. And when the body can feel safe, be in a receptive mode, Chinese medicine, fertility is all about flow and receptivity, not resistance, flow and receptivity. So when it feels safe, when you go into that parasympathetic response, which is the rest and digest, also known as the breed and feed nervous system, emphasis on breed, then you free up resources for healing, creativity, and reproduction. And this isn't like out there, nonsense stuff. I mean, there's Alice Domar's research on this. I have her on my podcast talking about how stress impacts fertility. We know this, that when somebody's in a stress response, they go fight or flight. Blood flow gets diverted from digestion, reproduction to go to your heart and your major muscles so you can fight or flight. Blood pressure goes up. You release cortisol and adrenaline. This chronically leads to inflammation, which causes systemic inflammation, which leads to accelerated biological aging and premature degenerative disease and fertility decline. You basically are closed down because you're in that fight or flight. And then you turn on and off genes that aren't promoting longevity and reproduction. And when you're able to calm the nervous system, the body feels safe, you go from, say, these high beta brainwaves overwhelming to like alpha, detached relaxation, or from fight or flight, sympathetic, into safety, parasympathetic. Then you release serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and they turn on and off genes for healing and reproduction. And the Western term now is called psychoneural immunology, PNI. Now they even call it psychoneuroendocrine immunology, meaning your thoughts and feelings impact your nervous system, your hormonal system, your immune system, and those impact egg quality, sperm quality, and implantation. So, that's why I say the conscious fertility, because you can take all the CoQ10 in the world, but if you have fear running, or this isn't going to work, or I waited too late, and that's smoldering in the background, that creates resistance in the body, and that can be what's blocking your fertility because you don't have the resilience and the adaptability to allow for flow and receptivity. And we don't look at the situation, it's how you internalize it. So we all come in with a different set of adaptability and resilience. It's not the situation, it's how you perceive the stress that impacts it. And so that's kind of that's my long answer to what is conscious fertility.
Holy smokes. Okay, my mind is blown. I don't know about you, Tanya, but like we can just wrap it up. No, I'm just kidding. Like I want to hear so much more from you, but this is so interesting because as a past fertility patient, I don't know about Tanya, like if you can relate to this, but the most frustrating thing to be told as a fertility patient is just stop stressing out about this and relax, you know? But I don't hear you saying that. I hear you saying like it's real and the stress is impacting your fertility, but there are potentially subconscious ways we can turn off our stress, or we can change our turn off and on genes. Like, can we really do that is my next question. So how does stress and emotional patterns impact this on a physical level?
So we have research on this. So yes, it turns on and off genes. We study this emotional freedom technique. There's really interesting research where it lowers cortisol levels. It dampens the amygdala. They see certain genes being turned on and off. They see changing the brain. Not only are people feeling differently, but they can measure objectively. But I want to talk on something you mentioned, like just relax, right? You're right. I'm not saying that. That doesn't work. And that's dismissive. And that's going to put you more into fight or flight.
Yes.
What I am saying, though, because, you know, sometimes in this day and age, we're afraid to offend anybody, to say things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to do that. I don't want to not say something that's not going to help you. So I wouldn't say just relax, because if you could, you would, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And we teach tools to elicit the relaxation response. What I think is happening is, we're trying so hard and we're coming from a place of fear and lack that we are shutting things down, and we're putting ourselves into those high beta brainwaves, overwhelm, into the fight or flight. The body doesn't feel safe because you're trying so hard from fear and lack. What I'm suggesting is to learn to surrender. Surrender does not mean giving up. No. Surrender means trust. And you can't just do this. There's processes and tools that I use in my practice to rewire the brain and teach you to do this. But if you can surrender to this process, then that frees up the resources while you're taking action. So the activity may look the same. Two people, you're twins, okay, Erin? So twin 1 and twin 2. One is coming from fear and lack. She's taking CoQ10. She's going for acupuncture, laser therapy. She's doing IVF, right? And she's freaking out. I waited too long. I don't know if it's going to work. If it doesn't work, my husband may leave me. What are my in-laws going to think? I'm a failure. Who knows what's going on unconsciously or consciously? And she needs this baby, desperate. So a lot of resistance in the field. Twin 2, same action. She's going for acupuncture, low-level laser therapy. She's taking CoQ10. She's doing IVF. But she has a process in. She's doing breathing. She wants it. She knows it may not work. She knows she'll be disappointed if it won't work, but she has tools to help her lean into these uncomfortable feelings, to accept what it is so she doesn't fight it. And so she has more of a sense of peace in this difficult situation. Yeah. Both are doing the same activity. They will probably end up with different outcomes because of where their beingness comes from. One's coming from fear and lack. One's coming from feeling whole and complete. One is trusting the process. One is fighting upstream against the process.
Yeah.
So just relax does not work. Not trying does not work. Being over-attached to the outcome puts more resistance into the field, and it will probably make it harder to conceive or longer to conceive. So we have to learn new ways to do this, processes to elicit the relaxation response.
Yes, just sharing like a little bit from my own journey, but we had a position where we were male factor fertility. My fertility workup was like, you know, textbook perfect from my end. And so IUI should have worked for me with donor sperm. But I had so much fear in my body about this. If this doesn't work, I'm going to die. Like that is how I felt. If this doesn't work, I'm going to die. If I'm not a mom, like I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. This is too hard. And so I was always going into every appointment with that mindset. And before I did my final transfer, I went to see a Reiki healer, and I had her do EMDR, I believe it was, where we did this, like we basically talked me out of the fear. And I left that appointment feeling like if this doesn't work, I'm going to be okay. instead of if this doesn't work, I'm going to die. And it was like that shift. And I was like, I got to the point where I was like, I need somebody else to move this fear and energy out of my body because I can't do it on my own. Like I was at that point where I just knew like whatever's going on in here is beyond my ability to fix. And it's not medical. It felt fully spiritual. It felt fully emotional. It felt fully like soulful, whatever you want to call it. And so that for me was like it was a game-changing moment because it all actually allowed me to go into my final embryo transfer feeling like even if this doesn't work, I'm going to be okay. And that feeling was like the most it was the most like game-changing feeling that I could have like had on that journey. But it was, I don't know how I got there. I couldn't have got there on my own. So yeah.
What you said though is, I don't know if this is going to work.
Yeah.
I know you wanted it to work. That's what you preferred, but you also said, you're going to be okay. And when women come to me, they can't imagine that they'll be okay. You did a tool called EMDR to help release trauma from the body. Mm-hmm. And when I do my conscious work, my practice, that's what I'm doing, helping people rewire their brain, release old programs that don't serve them. They say the issues get stuck in your tissues, and they say what you say. This is how they get to a place somewhere in our treatments where they're like, I want this baby. And if I don't have this baby, I'm going to be okay. And nobody who comes into my place that is in that place where you were with a fear, and they can't imagine that. So I don't expect them to imagine it. However, that's a great place. So I can't promise you that you'll get the baby. However, if we go through this process work together, we'll always work on the physical. But if you have that shift, that transformation, spiritually and emotionally, you do come to a place of peace. Yes. And I think that brings in the feeling the flow and receptivity, which in Chinese medicine says is necessary. And in the West, they'll dismiss this because we don't have good data on this, but they can't measure it. Not everything, we can't measure everything yet, right? And we can't see everything with our equipment. We're getting better and better. But the ancient cultures have talked about this. Your listeners intuitively know this. You guys sense it, you feel it. And so, this is where I say 25 years into practice, this is the most important part. Joe Dispenza, he's written a couple of books, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I like how he said something once. You can use matter to change matter. So that's IVF, CoQ10, or you can use energy. You can use energy to move matter. That's what you did, the EMDR. And he says matter to move matter is linear, and it takes time and effort. And energy and that's on a Newtonian level. And he says energy to move matter is there is no time and space. It's instantaneous. That's where you have those spontaneous miracle pregnancies. And that's where he's talking in the quantum, which current Western medicine is still Newtonian medicine. So they don't talk about it and they can't measure it and understand it. But it's not weird out there stuff. That's just new science. Quantum physics gets this. This is not a big reach for quantum physicists.
So, I mean, safe to say, if we have a medical diagnosis and we're doing the medical work, but we're also doing the spiritual, subconscious work, then like that's going to give us the best possible chance of this working. So tell us what people can do today to create the most optimal environment for healing. Like what can they do at home on their own, just like in the privacy of their wherever in their house they feel safe? What's something simple that we can give them?
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of things. And if you want, I can give you a metaphor of, like you said, create that environment. But two things, if you want to do it on the, I'm sensing like on the spiritual level, how do I help myself calm, right? I'll give you three things that are fairly simple and relatively affordable or free. And we can even walk your audience through a 2-minute process if you like. One is practicing gratitude. Every day write three things you're grateful for on a piece of paper every day, and you have to write it down. And the goal is to bring up gratitude. That's been studied. UCLA, I believe, did this study, and many more, where the brain rewires when you do gratitude, and it helps you access parts of your brain that you normally don't access, parts of the creativity, right? Probably because it's taking you out of that reptilian survival mode into a whole brain where you have access. You're not in survival mode, so you can access your creativity, and inspired thought can come through you. But gratitude like attracts like. So if you can write down three things that you're grateful for, that's the first step. And I'm going to emphasize or share that everything I'm going to share right now, these 3 things, they're simple. That's the bad news, because they're simple. Simple, often people will dismiss because they're simple. We're used to, because it's a program, that if I don't work really hard, then it can't have any value, right? If it doesn't cost me a lot of money, it can't be really valuable. If it doesn't go beep, beep and make noises, then it can't be really valuable, right? But I'm going to tell you, gratitude. The other one is download. We have one on my website for free, but you can get them for under $30. Guided meditations to help you elicit the relaxation response. Listen to those every day. And then your breath. The third one is the breath, where you can use your breath to elicit the relaxation response. And this is important because your autonomic nervous system is involved with your immune system. Your nervous system is your autonomic nervous system, your hormonal system. And so, like while we've been talking here, your heart's beating. You don't have to think about it. And you've been breathing. You haven't been thinking, I need to breathe in or breathe out while you're here, because it's part of your autonomic nervous system. But if I asked you to hold, or all the listeners, stop your heart for 4 seconds. I don't think anybody listening can do that. But if I asked our listeners to stop breathing for 4 seconds, we all can do that. That's because although our breath is part of our autonomic nervous system, we have some voluntary control. And through heart rate variability research, we know now that the exhale engages the parasympathetic response, the rest and digest, breathe and feed. And so whenever you're feeling triggered, you got a IVF appointment coming up, or you got a negative pregnancy test, or your boss is giving you grief at work, whatever it is, that stress response is going to release the same hormones as if you're being attacked by a wild animal, right? But there's no survival benefit. If you get a negative pregnancy test, there's no survival benefit, but your body responds the same. So you want to tell your body, I'm safe, because there's no survival benefit.
Right.
And the breathing technique is in through your nose for a count of 4, hold for 4 seconds, and out through your mouth for a count of 8. Why out? It's similar to box building breathing, but you want a long exhale, because the exhale is what's engaging the parasympathetic nervous system. And your tongue, bringing something from Chinese medicine, you want your tongue at the roof of your mouth, just behind your 2 front teeth. It's like your hookup point. It creates a circuit, this orbit that we like in Chinese medicine. And it also, I like from common sense, if your tongue's at the roof of your mouth, it's harder to clench your jaw when you're stressed, right? Yeah. And you just, can we do it for 2 minutes? Do like 8 breaths this way? Are you guys okay with that?
Yes, that's it.
Okay. So we're going to do it in for 4, hold for 4, out for 8. I'm going to do a pace, but you do your pace, those that are listening, so it's comfortable. And I would start with just a big inhale, exhale, like a, you clear out your lungs. And the exhale is gentle exhale when you're doing this breath, like you're breathing through a straw. So one more inhale, exhale. Mouth closed, in through the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold 2, 3, 4. Now exhale through the mouth like you're blowing through a straw gently. 5, 6, 7, 8. Deep inhale, 2, 3, and 4. Hold 2, 3, and 4. And exhale out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're welcome to close your eyes if you're not driving on the inhale for a count of 4. Hold for a count of 4, 3, and 4. And as you exhale, just set the intention that you're letting go of all the tension, all the worry, and all the stress on the exhale. 7, 8. Inhale, peace and calmness on the inhale for a count of 4. Hold that peace and calmness. 3 and 4. And again, just letting go of all the tension on the exhale, just surrendering and releasing as you blow out gently, easily for a count of 8. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3, 4. And again, exhale out, just letting it out. So do that when you wake up. Do that before each meal, because parasympathetic is digestion. Do that when you go to bed. Do that anytime you're stressing. Now, patients that I see, I go on site in Vancouver to the Olive Fertility Center. So my team goes on site on transfer day for acupuncture and laser acupuncture. And I will, if they're depending on the time, and I see if somebody's overly stressed, I'll teach them the breath. And they do this while we're doing the needles and lasers, just to get them into a calmer state, receptivity, because we're about to transfer an embryo, so receptivity. The only thing I tell them when they go in for the transfer, do not hold your breath, because then the doctor thinks they're hurting you, and then they ask questions and everybody gets all panicky. So if you're doing it on the transfer, in and exhale, do not hold. Don't hold.
Fair.
How did you feel when you did that? I think you guys were doing it along. How did that feel when you did that?
I feel like that was probably the most oxygen I've gotten all day.
And it's simple.
Yes.
Small action leads to massive results. If you do this daily, for those listeners that have cold hands and feet, that's chronic cold hands and feet. That's part of a sympathetic response, because the blood goes away from your extremities to your major muscles. When I have people do this for 3 weeks, where they do it morning, night, before meals, and anytime they're stressed, driving, etc., within that 3-week window, they notice their hands and feet warm up. Well, guess what? If your hands and feet are cold, I'm questioning how much blood flow you're getting to your ovaries, because it's the same sympathetic that pulls the blood away from your hands as it pulls it away from your ovaries and your digestive system. And that's why a lot of people with stress have all these gut issues. I was that kid. Remember, I left accounting for it, right? And so the breathing technique is a simple approach, including gratitude, is a simple guided meditation to elicit the relaxation, take you from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And if you do that daily, you will start to notice your hands and feet warm up. And I would suggest you probably see an increase in blood flow to your reproductive system.
Wow. This is amazing. I'm learning so much.
To get back kind of onto the topics that we were trying to kind of bouncing around, was we're talking about some of the things that people kind of their inner voice is saying to them as they are going through this process. But what are some of the other common emotional or subconscious blocks that you're seeing that can impact conception?
Yeah, so in my practice, quite interesting, and I do this. So people all over, because I see people in my clinic in Vancouver where I'll do the AcuLaser and the conscious work with them in my sessions. But I also do like this, like we're doing on a video together over like telehealth. And there is a common thing that we see. And one thing I wanted to share that was not surprising, but important to share. As a clinical hypnotherapist, I often do what's regress. We take what's happening now, the fertility issue, and we see how old this feeling and program is. And most people by my third session are no longer working the fertility trauma or stress. They're working something from before age 10. So I just want to share that part. When you distill it down, well, I'll give you layers. So first of all, this isn't going to work. I waited too long, right? I've had people culturally, like my in-laws or my husband's going to leave me, my body's failing me. So fear is a big part of it, and fear of failure, right? Fear of not good enough. And when you really distill it down, everybody I see, the programs are running, they all have their own narrative, their own story. But when you really trace it back and distill it down, the programs are some form of I'm not enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not lovable enough. So these are the programs we're running. So we're running these programs, and life bounces into you, and they activate your program, and we get caught up in the story. So fertility is a wake-up call. But I have people that get a cancer diagnosis or a divorce or a bankruptcy or illness in a child. It's their wake-up call that makes them do the inner work. It just so happens fertility is a very good wake-up call. And that's what brought me to the Conscious Fertility Podcast, is because I realized no matter what, the desperation, people are going to do whatever they can to get pregnant. So they come to me and go, well, maybe this conscious stuff will help, right? I'll try anything. And they come to me. And the reason this was important, by the way, is one of the experts I had on my podcast, Vanessa Lapointe, who's a psychologist, a child psychologist, she said that so many of the children are cutting themselves, drugs, gangs, suicide, because they didn't get the attachment from their parents growing up, right? So they don't get the attachments, they don't feel enough. And she said, if one generation, if the parents were able to attach to these children, they would grow up feeling whole and complete, and they wouldn't need to cut themselves, join gangs, drugs, or suicide. So the Conscious Fertility Podcast, the work I do, but the podcast in general was, they come to me trying to get pregnant. So there's the conscious fertility. And then hopefully there's conscious conception, then there's conscious pregnancy, and then there's conscious parenting. So through this journey to conceive, I'm hoping that there is a spiritual transformation. There's a self-realization where we become whole and complete. And now they're able to attach to their children so they don't have these voids that we all grew up with. And then to go back to Erin's comment, they get to this place in this work where I want this baby. I'm going to put effort into having this baby. And I also know I'm okay if I don't have this baby. And that to me is the goal, because nobody can guarantee, there's no 100% success rate for fertility or most things we do in life. And so I want people to have the tools, so no matter what the outcome is outside of them, they're whole and complete, because that's the key of conscious work. We keep looking for the outside to fill us up. Just this relationship, or if my partner's just this way, if I just make so much more money, if I just move to this city, if it was just this government, then I'd be okay. But what I learned through this conscious work, you just have to work on yourself and not worry about working on the outside of you. And when you become whole and complete, then you're no longer at the effect of the outside world. You're at peace, even in an unhappy situation. And fertility is just another wake-up call for us to do our work. Hopefully that answered your question, Tanya.
Yeah, I think so. So when I met you in Vancouver, the thing that like I got most interested in, and I'm going off script here, so I'm putting you on the spot. I know, Lorne, but you talked about hypnosis for infertility, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. Yeah, put me out. Like, put me in a different, like, I want to be hypnotized for sure. Right. I was like, we're going to do live hypnosis on the live. And then you're like, I don't actually hypnotize people. You realize that. I'm like, well, then what are you talking about? What is this hypnosis? I want to hear a little bit of what that is. And then I was like, oh yeah, I guess I could relate it, because I've heard about hypnosis for like birthing when people are at that point. And then I was like, oh, it's hopefully maybe something similar. So I'll throw it over to you. Tell us more about what is this hypnosis and how does that work?
So there's stage hypnosis, which what I think is what you referred to, where I make you quack like a duck.
Yes, on our show, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and when the clinical hypnotherapy is when we facilitate and help you get into these different states, but you're aware. So when I work with clinical hypnotherapy, people are sometimes reliving an experience from their childhood or some type of trauma, but they could just open their eyes and it's over, right?
Right.
Like, if the fire alarm went off, they would be fine. So it's just putting you into that state. It's just a different state that you're in, but you're still aware, you're still in control, right? So that's why I'm saying I'm not going to make you quack like a duck, because I'm not trained in stage hypnosis. Although I'm with you, I think it's really cool and it's a party trick. Clinical hypnotherapist is about making the unconscious conscious and helping you rewire your program. So rewire the programs, because you see the world through the lenses of your subconscious. So you perceive the world based on your history. Actually, we even know transgenerational, what happened with your great-grandparents, your grandparents, your parents, and then your teachers, and your sex, your socioeconomic, your gender, all that stuff impacts you. And then eventually that's your program, and that's how you perceive the world. So using that metaphor, if we change your lens, you would perceive the world differently. You'd have a different experience. So that's what we're doing. We're rewiring the brain, hopefully getting rid of outdated programs that don't serve you. They served you when you were 4 maybe, but they don't serve you as an adult. And then you perceive it differently. And just to give you a metaphor, I heard a teacher of conscious use this one really well. Assume reality is just white snow. It's white snow. That's what reality is. But Erin, you have blue glasses. Tan, you have red. I have yellow. One of the listeners has orange. Somebody else has green. We're all looking at the same thing, white snow, but all of us have a different experience of what that white snow is. And if we change your lens, you're going to have a different experience of it. So that's what we're doing. How you see the world is based on your subconscious programs. And so we're changing these programs. And then you have a different experience, because how you experience it will impact your nervous system, will impact what hormones get released, whether you're doing the dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, the healing, reproductive, creativity hormones, or is it cortisol and adrenaline, survival? Let's downregulate fertility because we got to survive right now. And so it's really important, because life is happening and you're only taking in so much, but you are giving it meaning. We are meaning makers. And I have a process I call notice, accept, choose again. Notice everything's neutral. and then we give it meaning. The meaning we give it is through the lens of our subconscious. Except this is where the tools come in, like EMDR, where we help release these old programs. We learn to accept them first. So we accept them. And accept them doesn't mean you're resigned to them or like them. It just means you don't put any more resistance. And I love emotional freedom technique and other hypnosis tools to help people get into a state of acceptance. And once you're accepting them, you're present, then you can change them and then choose again. Now you can consciously choose how you want to be in this world. And so your activity, your action, choose again, comes from your beingness. Historically, most of us are taking action from fear and lack, and now we're taking action from feeling whole and complete. And so that is, when you say hypnotize people, it's self-hypnosis. Like when somebody listens to a guided meditation and they're telling you you're on the water and you hear the lapping of the water and the sun, you feel the warmth, you're changing your brain states, and that has impact. And so that's a form of self-hypnosis. And that's what I'm doing with my patients. All hypnosis, they say, is self-hypnosis. We're just the facilitator, but it's not, because some people are afraid of that, right? It's not stage hypnosis. You're not going to tell me all your deepest secrets.
That's great. Well, that's
too bad. Too bad. That sounds like a lot of fun.
That could be a lot of fun.
I really wanted to get hypnotized live on the village.
Dr. Lorne, you're blowing our minds here. But you're also an author. You co-wrote the Acubalance Fertility Diet.
Yes.
So what role does nutrition play in this whole conversation and in creating the optimal environment for conception?
Yeah, and I want to tell your listeners that they can get a free copy of that book when they go to the Acubalance website.
Okay,
So
good.
It's the building blocks, like your cells. Like, when let's work backwards. IVF, they got to work with good ingredients, right? And so if the egg isn't great and the sperm's not great, we're not going to make a great embryo, right? And so if you make a cake from sour milk and expired eggs, the cake isn't going to be very good. And so nutrition can impact the quality of your cells, and the egg is a cell and the sperm is a cell. So we need, think of food as information. And, even calorie counting doesn't work because, a calorie of protein like chicken and a calorie of a fat like avocado and a calorie of a carb, broccoli, or a sugar cube, right? Or a canola oil, they're all 1 calorie, but they'll all behave differently in the body, and some will make you lose weight and some will make you gain weight, right? So calorie counting doesn't work for that reason. It's not a perfect mathematical equation. So think of food as information, and certain foods can lead to inflammation, which we don't want. I alluded to this earlier, that inflammaging is accelerated biological aging from systemic inflammation. And in fertility, we want to be biologically young as possible. So we don't want the inflammation. If you have blood sugar spikes, that's going to affect your insulin levels, which is going to impact your other hormones and inflammation. And so, if you had a plant, you're going to want to, make sure the soil has the nutrients. If the soil doesn't have all the nutrients, even though it grows an orange, it may not be loaded with vitamin C because it didn't have the nutrients in the soil to pull up into that orange. Those that have been lucky enough to have children, they are very careful what they feed their baby, right? Because it's growing. So nutrition is very important. There was the Harvard nurses study, I think it was an 8-year study, thousands of nurses, where they showed based on diet, you could negatively or positively impact ovulation and fertility. So what we did with our Acubalance Fertility Diet is we took the nurses study, we looked at the Mediterranean diet, which is a popular diet, and we looked at Chinese medicine principles. And myself and Dr. Kaylee McIsaac, naturopathic doctor, rewrote it because I wrote it years ago, and then we rewrote it, simplified it, so it's even more accessible. And then the first edition, the food tasted terrible because it was all healthy but terrible recipes. And Kaylee said to me, "Have you ever eaten any of your recipes?" I go, "Not too many." She goes, "Well, they're disgusting. They're terrible. Nobody's going to eat this." And Kaylee's a great cook. So she says, "I'm going to use our principles and I'm going to find recipes or create recipes and we'll test them out." And that's what we did. And we have a 3-week, 21-day recipe plan with the book. And again, you can download that for free. I want to add to just the diet side of it is, when you look on the internet, you're going to get confused. because some say meat, some say no meat, some say carbs, some say no carbs, some say fast 16 hours. What we realize, because they contradict each other, but yet they all say they work, right? What they all have in common is no processed food, no refined flour, no added sugar, drink water, and eat lots of vegetables, right? That's the key. Whether you eat meat or not, or carb or not, or fast or not, that's just getting fancier, right? And for some people, they need that because it becomes a medicinal diet. So there's some people where we do some real restrictions, but the diet is now medicinal, meaning you don't often take some medications you're not meant to take lifetime, right? And so some of the diets, we will make them a medicinal diet, but it's meant for 3 months, maybe 4 months or 3 weeks, and then we change it. The diet book that I have is just a staple. It's not meant to be a fad. It's a way to eat for life. And again, there's lots of stuff on the internet. So we just simplified, this is what they all have in common. And if you do this, this works. And the rest, you can talk to your provider if you want to decide if you want to tweak it here and there.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds so interesting. I'm definitely going to check that out. And to let everybody in our support groups know on a monthly basis that they can access that resource for free. That's amazing.
Yeah, and we put an ebook there too, 5 ways to get naturally get pregnant. We put a little ebook with it too when they download that. So
awesome.
There's some good resources there for your listeners.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm going to bring it back again to the manifestation and inner healing. We've got about 10 minutes left. I can't believe how fast this conversation has gone. But other than the breathing that we went through earlier, can you give everybody one small daily practice that you recommend just to shift from that fear into alignment? Is there something simple we can do?
Well, I mean, that is the simple thing. Like what you focus on grows, right? What you give your attention to. So if you're focusing on this isn't going to work in all your fear, then you're going to get more of that. So that's why the gratitude. So I'm going to go back to the simple, right? So again, this is why people go, give me something, right? It's simple, powerful, effective, and keep it playful is the intention I set. The reason the gratitude is important, they did a study on this. They had people where I think the first study I saw on this was there's a magazine and they got them to count how many images they saw. And they had a group of what they would assess as optimists and pessimists. And the people that were pessimists, and in the book, by the way, in this study, there was a line that says, to finish this right now, go to the very last page. And on the very last page, it says, show this to the supervisor, collect $250. They all had identical. The pessimist went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the line. They miss it. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They count. They hand it in. The optimist went 1, 2, read the line, flipped it over. They finished it quicker. They were able to see things that the pessimists couldn't see, right? They were open. Then they took the people that didn't do well in the study and they gave them gratitude to do for 3 weeks, 3 things you have to write down. And not only did they notice they had a different experience, and when they did another type of study, a better outcome, but they saw parts of the brain rewired. It structurally changed the brain. So gratitude, what you're going to focus on is going to grow. And so you want to practice gratitude because you want to train your brain what has gone well in the last 24 hours. And if it's difficult, because for some people that's difficult, then get excited because that shows you your brain isn't wired well for gratitude. So it tells you got to work out that muscle. So if you work it out, you're going to get there, practice that. And you have to feel the gratitude. Some people just write things down to get it I've done the task. The key is to feel the gratitude. That's the key. That's the chemistry.
Yeah.
The breath. You said you got to get into relaxation. When I do hypnosis work and conscious work, we want to be in an alpha state brainwave. We want to be in parasympathetic. If you're in high beta, if you're in sympathetic, your body's going to override and wants to survive. So you can't get into the operating system to fix it, to change it. So the breath is important. So everybody that I work with, if they're in person, the needles induce that relaxation response. So already getting that, but I want them to be in that state of openness, receptivity, so we can work on the operating system, the subconscious. So that's why the breath is important. So those are the reasons why, because we can make it more complicated. I want your listeners to have something simple. Everybody breathes, so do that. If you want to spend $30, you can download some meditations. Contact me. I can recommend some. Or download mine. I have an 18-minute one that's free where I do a breath, a body scan, and heart-brain coherence to elicit that response. And then the gratitude. They're powerful. They'll make shifts, not in a day, but if you do this over time, these small actions lead to big results.
Yeah. I love that you said you have to feel the gratitude, because I was about to add, like, just go to ChatGPT and it'll give you a ton of good ideas on what to be grateful for. But that's like probably not the best advice. You have to come up with the things on your own.
Yeah, the subconscious understands feeling and imagery, not text. That's why affirmations don't work very well, because when you say I'm fertile, but inside you don't believe it, that's what you're putting out into the ether, right? Is the feeling. So you're lying to yourself and you're creating resistance because you don't believe it. So you have to believe it for it to have that benefit. You have to feel it. And if you have something that you're grateful for, then use it every day if it brings up gratitude. But you need 3 original things. So if you keep using something over and over again, it just means the next day you have to say 4 things. The one that you used yesterday and 3 new things. You're training your brain to look for things you're grateful for. What I like to do is I do it twice, in the morning and at night. One of them you write it down, and the other one you just review it in your head. Because when you go to bed and when you wake up, that's how you want to start and end your day. Why? We're following the rhythm of the brain. Remember I said alpha and theta is where you get in the operating system. So when we go to bed at night, we're in beta. And as we start to fall asleep, we go into alpha. So it's the natural rhythm. So that's why practice gratitude before bed. Then you go into theta. And when you're in delta, you're asleep, right? And when you wake up, you're going from delta into theta into alpha. And now you're beta. So it's a perfect time to practice it, because you have more accessibility to that part of your brain that you're wanting to influence and change. And when you exercise the alpha, improve that amplitude, you'll have more memory of your dreams. You know how you've had, listeners, you guys, tell me if this happened to you. You know when you've had a dream and it was like an epiphany, like you've understood the world. You got the life lesson.
Yes, totally.
And as you wake up, you're just blown away and you're excited. But as you wake up, the memory leaves you. You remember this was profound, but you can't remember it, right?
Yeah.
You've had that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So you went from theta, quickly alpha into beta. Because alpha is the bridge between theta and beta. Theta is this subconscious cool stuff you're in, supercomputer in your brain. And beta is your waking mind that we're in right now. So you were there, theta, and you went so quickly, theta, alpha, beta, you have no bridge, so you can't remember it. But if you build this alpha through the breath, through gratitude, you will start to have these dreams and you'll remember them more. Why? Because you've strengthened alpha, so you have a bridge. So as you wake, you're in alpha longer, and alpha is the bridge to take this cool insight into your thinking mind, beta.
Wow. Like just that in itself for this whole thing, I'm like, this is amazing. I love this conversation so much. Okay, Tanya has one more question and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yes. Fertility journey is a exhausting and overwhelming journey for a lot of people. I know that I'm taking about a year off of my journey just because I was so stuck. So what message would you give somebody who feels stuck and hopeless and exhausted by this journey?
Well, first, I get it. I've witnessed it, that you can feel really stuck and hopeless and feel like this is the worst place ever. So I could totally understand that you would feel that way and think that way, of course. They know through research that this is like a terminal illness diagnosis, same level of stress. I'm talking to a company where we're looking at biometrics to predict fertility outcomes. So to be continued, maybe another interview if this works. But when they were studying Navy SEALs and the stress they put them under in fertility, like very similar. So it's not in your mind, it's in your cells, it's in your bodies. Your subconscious is in every cell. So yes, it can be really challenging. And there are tools and things available to help you access that inner healer. You have that capability. You have this inner healer. You have this soul side of you that can do miracles, can do incredible things. And you can come to a place of peace and feel whole and complete on this journey. I'm not saying that, oh, if you do this, you get the baby. Nobody can promise you that. If they do, run from them. Okay. Mm-hmm. Nobody can promise you. But you can be at peace and feel whole and complete. So you're okay whether you have baby or not. And if you're going to go through this journey, you could go through kicking and screaming, or you can go through it in a peaceful, in a healthy way. And so there are tools there. So it takes courage to ask for help. I love your the village. You guys are the village. It takes a village, right? You're not going to be able to do this alone. Don't try to do this alone. No. Have the courage to look for people like Erin and Tanya, the group here. The support is important. Look for people that can support you on this journey. Have the courage. And you have this inside of you, this innate ability to heal. And tap into that insight that can tell you what's the best direction for you. So stay the course, and I wish you the best of luck.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. This episode is like, I'm actually going to go back once it's like on Spotify and re-listen to all of the amazing advice you gave us tonight.
I was having the same thought. Honestly, I'm like, I hate hearing my own voice, but I'm going to have to listen to this one again.
Totally.
I got a question. Did you guys hit record?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
We're good. It's actually.
I was looking for the red. I was looking for that sympathetic red reaction. Like what?
No, we got it. We're live. It's going. It'll be on Spotify by the end of the week. So everybody tune in again. Thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, just all the incredible work you do. For those listening, go visit Acubalance.ca. We just put a link on the live if you're watching to where you can download the fertility downloads. We'll also link it in the show notes. Check out Healthy Seminars by Lorne Brown. Check out the Conscious Fertility Podcast. Dr. Lorne interviews the Egg Whisperer, Dr. Amy, all the time. He's actually the contact that introduced us to her, and she was on the live here a few weeks back now. But he's got amazing guests on there, all incredible. So
can I send them to places where the blogs, if you go to the Acubalance blogs, tons of resources for you guys. So just find the blogs on the website. And the diet, if you don't remember the link, on the homepage, it will pop up so you can get the diet. And then obviously the Conscious Fertility Podcast, we do have great guests on there. So those are the three places I would check out.
I'll link everything in the notes on the YouTube channel if you want to go watch this episode again, or check it out on Spotify. We'll put all the links there so that people can find you and find all of these amazing resources. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys for having me.
And don't forget, everyone, that your tickets to get your tickets for the fertility party, they're on sale on our website right now. And as always, join us at oasisfsn.com. Follow us at oasisfsn on Instagram and Facebook. And remember, wherever you are, you're not alone. Welcome to the village.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Thanks, Dr. Lorne. Appreciate you.